I am very excited for all of you to be joining us on this Earth Day. I hope you all had an opportunity to get outside and celebrate the best way that you could by cherishing this natural world that we work to protect every single day at Alaska Wilderness League. Today, I'm calling you from my home in Washington, D.C. It's the ancestral homes of the Piscataway and Anacostan peoples. And we're very thrilled to have a special presentation featuring our friend Elsa Sebastian, who's going to be joining us. Generally a Haines resident, but in Canada, I think at the moment. Uh, Before then, we'll have an opportunity to hear from our executive director, Kristen Miller, who's joining us as well. It's been a potentially big day for our issues, and there's likely going to be some more announcements coming. But right now, we're very eager to celebrate and look at some of the lands that we work to protect, as well as some of the people who cherish these lands and draw inspiration from it and love these places. Just after Kristen, like I said, you'll hear from Elsa. Elsa is the 2024 recipient of the Adam Colton Alaska Storytelling Grant Award. She's been an angler or fisher person by trade. She's a filmmaker and an activist, and has a long and storied tradition working and caring about the Tongass and all those great big trees that we care so passionately about and the lives that they impact. Before then, I'll pass it over to Kristen, who is our executive director, and hand it off to you.
Thank you, Chris. Can you hear me? Awesome. Hi, everybody. Happy Earth Day. I'm really excited to see so many people on this call, and I'm so excited to be here tonight with you all on Earth Day. Today is Earth Day. A day is meant to celebrate the work that we do at Alaska Wilderness League, and it's really awesome to be able to celebrate it with so many supporters because you are the reason that we are able to do what we do every day. So I'm so happy to be here, so happy to be here with you all. I will also say that this Earth Day is particularly poignant for us. Normally it's a day that we celebrate, but it's also, a day that that we recognize that we are under threat for a lot of the work that we do to protect lands and waters in Alaska and to protect lands and lots of threats to things for our environment all over the country. This is the work that we do at Alaska Wilderness League. This is our mission. But this Earth Day, we've also sort of had the extra anxiety, my staff and I, watching everything that's going on in the world, and especially the existential threat that we have seen going on with everything that's been coming at so many different 501c3s and other charitable organizations that are doing work for the common good. So it's definitely a time of high anxiety for us. It's definitely a difficult time to be doing this work, but it's also what we were built for. We have so many fights ahead of us that we know are coming. We know that we're going to be fighting back against reconciliation and seismic threats in the Arctic Refuge. We know that we are going to be fighting back against protection rollbacks for the Western Arctic. We know that there's going to be attempts to greenlight roads in Eisenbeck and Ambler Road, and we're going to hear, about the Tongass tonight. And we know that there are threats coming to the old growth forests of the Tongass. So it's a difficult day to celebrate Earth Day. But at the same time, this is what Alaska Wilderness League was built to do. And I can honestly say that I have never been more proud and honored to do this work. And to be able to spend today and this evening for me and be on this call and see so many people that have come here tonight to just listen to Elsa and to support what we do and to know that you guys are there and have our back as we're doing this work over these next few years. I feel really honored and privileged that we have the opportunity to do this. I'm so honored that Elsa's here to talk tonight, to tell the story, to connect you all to the work that we do. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here, and thank you for all the support that you give to us. We know it's going to be a tough fight ahead of us. We are ready and we're ready to go. But we really couldn't do it if we didn't have so many like-minded people like you by our side. So it means so much to us, and thank you. If you want any details about the fights that we are facing, feel free to ask questions later in the presentation. Hopefully you get our emails. But I don't want to spend too much time on that because I'd like to turn to the storytelling part of our evening. As everybody know, Elsa is our most recent recipient of the grant from the Adam Colton Memorial Fund. So for those of you that might not know, this was a grant that we put together in 2022 when we lost our executive director suddenly, Adam Colton. Some of you may have known him, but Adam loved a good story and he was a great storyteller. And so for us to be able to carry this grant forward is so important just because Adam knew, and we all know, how important storytelling is for our work. I mean, we have this call tonight and you guys are all on your screens, like you guys are all in your homes all across the country, probably most of you not in Alaska. And it is the stories that you're going to hear tonight and the stories that we are able to tell that connect you in all the places you are all across the country with the work that we do day in and day out at Alaska Wilderness League. And it's that sort of inspiring, it's that sort of inspiration that I know keeps you with us in this fight, and it's what keeps us going every day. So we're so happy to be able to give this grant. We were so happy to be able to give it to Elsa this year. And we're so happy to let Elsa show you what this grant, sort of means for a storyteller from Alaska. So, we will include a link to the fund in the chat. So please do give if you can to help us sustain this grant and carry it forward so that we can do this long into the future. So with that, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Elsa, for being here. We're really excited to hear your presentation, and thanks again.
Okay, thank you all so much for being here. And thanks to Alaska Wilderness League for the work that you do. I was lucky enough to first come back to Washington, D.C. when I was 10 years old. Basically, had never really left my home village before, and I was able to lobby for roadless Tongass back before Bill Clinton signed it into a rule. So I really appreciate the work that you all do. So yeah, thanks, Chris, for the introduction. I'm Elsa. I'm a lifelong Alaskan and commercial fisherman, and I have always found time in the off season to do some sort of conservation work. In the past handful of years, I've been lucky enough to be making films with my partner, Colin, who is a very talented filmmaker and the founder of Wild Confluence Media. The films that we collaborate on are mostly conservation documentaries, and we're specifically focused on Alaskan stories. And I'm sorry, I have a stutter and I'm struggling with that a little bit right now, but I'm sure it'll smooth out. So I'm structuring this presentation around two documentary films I've worked on in the past 5 years. The first film I'll talk about is called Understory, A Journey into the Tongass, and I will get more into that in the next slide. And then I'll talk about another documentary that's currently in production, and that's called Five Robes. And this film is about a Tlingit master weaver, and she's working with 4 apprentices to work to protect their home watershed from the threat of mining. And that's the project that Alaska Wilderness League is supporting with the Adam Colton Storytelling Grant. So just to start with Understory, the first part of my film is mostly my personal story, and it's really about me kind of finding my voice and finding the courage to speak out about the things I care about. And the film I'll be sharing clips from is called Understory, and we filmed this documentary within a year of the Trump administration announcing that the roadless rule protections were going to be rescinded from the Tongass, and then that film was released during the 2021 public comment period for the roadless rule. The film follows me and two of my friends as we sail around Prince of Wales, which is my home, on a somewhat janky sailboat that I owned at the time, and I love that it's kind of griminess comes through in the film poster. Prince of Wales is home for me, and it's also one of the places that has been hit the hardest by industrial logging. We were specifically exploring the forest that stood to lose protection from the roadless rule, and we also came across a lot of active logging that we shared in the film. So finding my voice as a conservationist. My work in conservation starts with a somewhat unconventional childhood. I was raised in a very remote fishing village, and as I mentioned, I have a stutter. A lot of kids who grow up in the middle of nowhere do have a hard time talking, and that's kind of part of my story as well. Our life in the village where I grew up really followed the fish. My family would move onto our 42-foot wooden fishing boat in the summer and chase salmon up and down the coast. And in the winter, we would return to our off-grid homestead, which is pictured there in the corner. This was a really great way to grow up, but it was also pretty tough when I tried to integrate into what we call normal society. I was completely overwhelmed, and I just really didn't feel like I fit. I think probably the biggest culture shock I experienced was going to college in Boston. And during those years, I just lived to come back home and go fishing. And at that time, I was running my own salmon fishing boat and living on the boat and fishing by myself for the whole summer season. I always thought I would graduate from school and get like a real job. But fishing was just where I felt like I fit and I felt at home. So I continued it even after I finished school. And when I wasn't fishing, I was volunteering for nonprofit boards, and I really tried to get involved where I could, but I always kind of felt like I wasn't doing enough for wild places and the places I cared about, and I wasn't really sure how to get involved further. So in my mid 20s, I really started to resonate with Wendell Berry, who is a Kentucky-based writer and farmer. And one of the things I really appreciate about Barry is he uplifts a rural way of knowing and understanding that's based on having a tangible relationship with the natural world. I specifically remember reading his essays when I was alone on my fishing boat. I would be on anchor in some beautiful place, eating my dinner after a long day of fishing and just absolutely devouring these stories. And I think up until this point, I had always thought that I needed to be an expert and have something that was important to say. But reading Barry really helped me realize that just being from a place was enough, and that understanding the place you're from is really the work of a lifetime. Oh, let's go back here. So I'm about to share a clip that is from the beginning of the film, Understory. And I wanted to start the film in the village where I grew up. And I wanted to start it with, it starts with some archival footage that's from the I think from 1976. And I just wanted to show that this has been a generational fight, and that commercial fishermen have been on the forefront of the fight to protect the Tongass for decades. And so the film opens in my home village, and you'll hear from one of the folks I grew up around. And I'll just share a couple minutes of this.
Tongass is so big, it almost defies description. Thousands of miles of coastline, hundreds of islands, and trees, 11 million acres worth of Sitka spruce, western hemlock, and Alaska cedar. All this and the wildlife that lives there belongs to you and me. It's up to the Forest Service to manage it in a way that will allow as many different uses as possible for the forest. What do you think of the way the Forest Service has handled the situation out here?
I think they have a lot of gall selling the people's land to this one company, letting them get rich, while generations of people are going to have to look at the scar that's left. It's not just logging coming into this area that I don't like. It's the logging practice in general in all the Southeast, or the whole use of our national resources.
That was my neighbor, Howard. Like most of us out here, he's a commercial fisherman. He moved to this village about 50 years ago, the same time as my parents. Howard and my folks learned how to catch salmon from the old timers. But just as they got comfortable living off the land, they realized a cruel truth. This idyllic fishing village is front lines of a David and Goliath battle against short-sighted greed and the ruin of one of the last coastal rainforests in the world. This film is about what it means to call a place home. But it's also about how the fight to keep trees standing in Alaska is critical to the future of our planet.
Okay, that's just the first couple minutes of our film. Yeah, as I said, it just felt really important to acknowledge that this fight has been going on for a long time, and especially folks who work on the land and on the water have a lot to say about it. The other thing that I found really compelling in Barry's writings was the way that he made clear that when humans lose their relationship with the land, these places are immediately more vulnerable. And this felt especially hard for me because the place I'm from, Prince of Wales, has been hit the hardest by the logging industry. And just an example of this I like to share is that the island is 135 miles long, and it's crisscrossed by 2,500 miles of logging roads. And most of those roads were punched in between like the 50s and the early 90s. So as you can tell, like that's means it's a pretty fragmented landscape. But there's still an incredible amount of beauty and wildness left here. But I had always kind of tried to avoid thinking too hard about where I was from and what had happened to this place because it felt hard. But years before Colin and I made Understory together, I felt a sense of responsibility to know this place better. And when Trump was first elected, there was some legislation on the table that would have transferred 2 million acres of the Tongass to the state of Alaska to be managed as a timber forest. So clearly that would have been a devastating thing for the place that I'm from. And that's when I started a ground truthing project where I bushwhacked across these threatened lands on my home island of Prince of Wales. And I shared those stories through podcast writing and presentations. I think really part of what motivated me to do that, and it was kind of a pretty extreme project. I spent more than a month on the ground, just bushwhacking and camping, living out of a backpack, going through like places that people normally don't travel through because nobody likes hiking through an old clear cut or even through, you know, unlogged rainfall forest that's just pretty wet. It actually rained every single day I was on the ground, which was extreme. But I was really motivated by the fact that it just didn't feel like there were many current stories about this place as it was in this moment, you know, like in a kind of like a time of transition. And so this project was definitely motivated from sort of a storytelling perspective. Oops. So I'm about to share another video clip from the film Understory. And I'm going to try to pause it and talk a little bit in the middle of the clip, but we'll see how that works.
London and Saturday. Sumner Strait. Today, southwest with 15 knots. Seas 4 feet. Showers. Sunday night, southeast wind 30 knots. Gusts to 45 knots. Seas 6 feet. Rain. Monday, southeast gale to 40 knots, becoming south 25 knots.
I should say that I was joined on this ground truthing expedition by two friends of mine. This is Mara that I'm with now. This is how the land is left. Like these trees are just going to be left like that, and it'll be impossible to walk through that for the next 50 years. So I'm not sure I can actually pause that. Shoot. For some reason, it's acting differently than I expected. But we'll just go to the next slide. I guess I wanted to talk in the midst of that image of devastation about how something that I really noticed when I was ground truthing is how these places feel totally abandoned. And part of that is because in the Tongass, it's really expensive to go back and thin the trees and do the sort of regenerative work that I think is done more commonly in other forests. And so really this clear cut, how it is, it's just left and it's left to regrow. And there are some thinning projects, but for the majority of it, like the Tongass is just a super remote place and it's super challenging and expensive to do the work of sort of cleaning up after something like this. So it's just left like this. And I think what I realized was that the loss, isn't just tearing up this land in the more immediate sense. It's just really that like rural people's relationship to this place have forever been severed, or at least for the next several lifetimes have been severed. It doesn't matter that somebody used to harvest cedar bark or berries or go hunting here, because they're not going to go back to this place to do those things again. And what became really obvious is that when a place like this is logged, it's losing its voices. It's like losing the constituency of people who will speak for it. And that loss is pretty massive, because if a mine is proposed in a place like this, and it's been 10 years since anybody's used it, and nobody really has a relationship with this place, there's not going to be anybody to speak up and be like, hey, you can't put a mine there, like that's where I go hunting. So it just really changes the trajectory of the landscape, and it really severs rural people's connection to place. And so for me, like, that's been a big part of my work, is trying to talk about how important human relationship with these places is, and how important it is that people in these small villages are getting out and going hunting and going fishing, and intimately connecting with these places. So when they are threatened, there's people there who know these places and will speak up for them. And I wish I could play the rest of that clip, but I think unfortunately, it's not letting me pause and restart. So we'll just keep moving on. So just another couple of learnings that came out of Understory, the film, and my initial ground truthing work was I sort of realized, like, as a storyteller, that when we embark on journeys to build relationships with places, we are effectively creating stories that are relatable to all people. And that's because all people have relationships in their life that are capable of bringing them joy and also of breaking their hearts. Um, and so whenever, we tell stories about these wild places, we kind of usually have both. And this for me, as I was walking through this clear cut, like my heart is absolutely broken. Like I'm devastated to see that this is still happening to these places that I love, especially when they're becoming more and more rare. And I think that I realized that it was important for me to be vulnerable enough to kind of show that that was breaking my heart. And if I would have played that clip on, there's a scene where I get kind of teary, which I am now anyway. So I guess you don't need the movie. But I think being able to show that tension in a film in a way that feels true, it really makes these issues feel personal. And it's possible then that somebody who has maybe never even heard about the Tongass before might feel the magnitude of this place and see it as being worthy of their care. So Understory came out during the U.S. Forest Service's final public comment period for the roadless rule, which was in 2021. And with the help of our partners, including the Wilderness Society and Audubon and Patagonia, our film was really widely seen. And the comment form that our film linked to brought in more than 3,000 unique personalized comments that were sent to the Forest Service. So that was really meaningful to me and was just made this whole project feel really worth it. So the roadless rule today, I expect that Chris will get into this a little bit more, and he probably is better versed on what's going on at the moment. But in 2023, the Biden administration repealed the Trump administration's rule, and roadless rule protections were reinstated on the Tongass, which of course protects 9 million acres of a 17 million acre forest. And this was really thanks to thousands of public comments and a really organized effort on the part of tribes and nonprofits, and just a lot of people worked really hard on it. Unfortunately, day one back in office, this time around, Trump signed an executive order that directed the Tongass to once again be exempted from the roadless rule protections. And it's not really clear what the process for that is going to be, like whether the Forest Service is going to do what they usually do, which allows for public comment and people to engage. But so yeah, that isn't clear, and I'm sure Chris will follow up on this more. Of course, we will keep fighting. So the second film I wanted to talk about is called Five Robes. And this is the film that Alaska Wilderness League has generously supported with the Adam Colton grant. And Five Robes is a film that we're currently working on. And it happens to be a local project for us, which is really cool because we get to spend a lot of time filming. Colin and I just bought a home in Haines, and we're filming this film primarily in Klukwan, which is about 25 miles upriver from us. And the film centers around the story of Lonnie Hotch, who is a Tlingit master weaver. And she's one of the last women alive who can weave this incredibly complex dancing blanket that's known as a Chilkat robe. The Chilkat is the river that flows through Haines and Klukwan. The river flows right in front of Lonnie's house. It's pretty incredible. So Lonnie has embarked on this ambitious and multiple year project to teach other women how to weave Chilkat robes. And she's mentoring 4 apprentices who are all Tlingit women, and they're weaving a robe for each species of salmon that spawn in the Chilkat River. There's a really incredible legacy of weaving in Klukwan, and regionally, and even on the Northwest coast, like this is a place that's known for having some of the best textile arts. Lonnie's project is really ensuring that there'll be another generation of women who have the experience weaving a Chilkat robe and can pass it on. This is Lonnie with one of her apprentices. So there's purpose for these robes beyond just passing on this knowledge. They are going to be salmon protector robes. And when they're worn and danced in, they will give voice to the salmon that spawn in the river. The Chilkat River is threatened by a large mining project that's just upstream from Klukwan. And the waste from the mine would, as it goes with all projects like this, would be stored in tailings ponds that, of course, would need to be last into perpetuity. So these tailings ponds would be a toxic threat to the salmon that spawn in the river. I'm about to share a scene, and it's an unedited scene where the film is still in production, so we'll be filming through next year, and then moving into post-production, but I'm just kind of like editing some scenes as I go. And the scene I'm about to share is one that I think is really special. Just kind of shows the deep connection that Lonnie and her husband Jones have to this place. So I'll go ahead and play that now.
We have all 5 species of Pacific salmon. And that's part of this reason why our people settled here to begin with, was the abundance of salmon in this river.
When Lonnie and Jones were doing this work together, they were listening to this really sweet kind of old-timey music that reminded me of this track that I edited this scene to.
Jones and I've been cutting fish ever since we got married. Back in 1978. Here it is, 2024. So pretty. The color. Here we have fish. We've inherited this land from our ancestors, and we have an obligation to pass it on good condition to our grandchildren.
Yeah, I love that scene, and I mean, there's going to be a lot of scenes in this film, obviously, and both Lonnie and Jones are really powerful voices for the fish and the river and their culture, and these two work really hard to protect these things. But I love this scene because it shows them at their most relaxed and happy. They love doing this together after all of the decades that they spent together. It like really shows what a good team they are. And it shows their relationship and reverence for salmon. So it's just a really relatable and beautiful scene. And I think too, when Lonnie starts talking about their obligation to protect the river, it's really easy to understand where she's coming from because you can see just what it means in her life. And you also know that she is absolutely not going to give up this fight. So these are some of my favorite moments from documentaries, and it always feels like a treasure when you kind of are able to capture and hold these scenes together. Because in what I believe and what I love about documentary films is is I think that a good documentary can show how people see the world and what experiences have shaped their worldview. And it really offers a glimpse of people at their most confident and comfortable and happy. And I think seeing this for folks who watch films, being able to see this side of people makes the person more important in their eyes than that person's opinions. And I just think as a culture, we place way too much importance on people's opinions, and we're kind of oversaturated with hearing people's ideas about the world. So it's really lovely when a documentary can just show where someone's coming from and what something means to them on a really visceral level. Yeah. So that's about all I have to share from that film. I guess I have a couple more things, but yeah, if anybody's interested in learning more about the mine that threatens the Chilkat River and the salmon and these women's way of life, Chilkat Forever is a super homegrown collaborative group that's led by the Chilkat Indian Village, which is the local tribe there in Klukwan. And it also includes community leaders from Haines and folks who are concerned and want to be part of something specifically to protect the river. So Colin and I will be filming through next spring and then going into post-production in 2026 and releasing our film in 2027. So mark your calendars, but I think you can also trust that Alaska Wilderness League will keep you posted about when the film is going to come out. I guess just in conclusion, this is kind of a tough Earth Day, as Kristen and Chris were talking about at the beginning, but the good news is that there's plenty of work to do. And that work can really bring meaning and purpose to our lives. I know for me personally, finding the courage to speak up for the things I care about, even when obviously I do have a pretty bad stutter that can really get in my way and hold me back. I think when it comes to issues like protecting the Tongass, I just will talk anyway. And I think that's kind of, and I've realize that like overcoming things and pushing through and doing the work even when it's tough is something that helps tell your story. It's like obvious that when you see people doing that you can see that they really care. And I guess the other thing I want to say in conclusion is that in my opinion, it's important not to be afraid to do the work that kind of aligns with your story and your heritage and your kind of niche interests, the things that you're passionate about that maybe other people don't really notice. I think that diversity in the conservation movement matters as much as it does in any ecosystem. And the more you can align your resistance and your work with who you are, the more sustainable and enjoyable and impactful it's going to be. And this is definitely how I try to orient my personal work. And I think it's also like these are the kinds of stories that Colin and I are always trying to tell, is stories of people who are doing work that they're really uniquely situated to do. And I mean, maybe that's another thing to say about the breadth of attacks that we're facing right now. There's kind of room for everybody to get involved. I'm also gonna I want to share one more clip from Lonnie, and who is the master weaver. And I haven't really been able to edit this yet, so it's still a little rough. We just recorded this in Klukwan just a couple weeks ago. But she's just talking about how weaving the salmon protector's robes is enough, even with everything that's coming at us in the world right now, what she's doing is enough. And I think that that's just a really important sentiment right now.
there's just too much information coming in to our lives all the time. I mean, it can get overwhelming. It's so easy to get derailed in these days and, lose your footing. And then you're no good to anybody. Just stay focused, do your work, and do it well. One of our elders, Walter Soboloff, he said, if there's something worth doing, step up to it and don't hold back.
I love that. I cannot wait to edit this film with Lonnie. She's such a great speaker and just has so much important stuff to say. And I wanted to end with that line because I think in the times we're in right now, the immensity of the things that we're facing can really make our efforts feel very small. And I honestly had a tough time preparing for this presentation for that very reason. But Lonnie is absolutely bang on. We need to just keep doing the work that needs doing. And I also wanted to end this presentation with a slide of some sock, which is the Tlingit name for candlefish or hooligan. And these are little fish that will be coming to spawn in the Chilkat River in the next week or so. We just ate the last bag of them out of our freezer, and unfortunately we won't be there to catch any more, but it makes me so glad to think of them coming. It's like such an exciting time where we live. And we were able to do some underwater filming of these fish, and the footage is absolutely gorgeous, and it's one of the more like exciting scenes in the film, I think, just because of all of the wildlife that converges to be part of this event. And the other thing that I really loved from one of our interviews is that one of the women told us that these are known as being happy fish, and it's really important to treat them with respect so they can continue to be happy. So I just wanted to end on that. Thanks to you all so much, and I will hand it over to Chris to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Elsa. I love the idea of happy fish as well. That's just a great note to end on. I'll echo some of the sentiments in the chat thus far. Everyone's saying how fantastic that was, and we really appreciate it. I also referred to a few different things, so I won't take up too much time. There's obviously a lot happening on our issues, both in the Tongass and Southeast Alaska, as well as throughout Alaska on all the public lands. We saw day one have a specific executive order targeting Alaska. And since then, it's been a lot of trying to figure out what's going to come next. So just as Lonnie kind of referred to, stepping up and doing the work, we've been finding ways to do the work as much as we can. And earlier in March, there was a couple executive orders targeting logging that includes some of the Tongass and looking to expand logging across the U.S. Again, there's no teeth to these yet, but we want to try and get out ahead of them. And as much as possible, would encourage folks to reach out and sign our petition, which is going to be targeting members of Congress to ensure that there's some voices being heard in favor of protecting our America's largest national forest. And for all the reasons that you've seen tonight, there's going to be some more opportunities to engage directly in hopefully comment periods. Ideally, we will be seeing a reintroduction of the Roadless Area Conservation Act, which is an effort in Congress to codify roadless protection so we can stop this nonsense of going back and forth every presidential administration as it gets rolled back and reinstated, because we do need to protect these places for good. I will also say, we saw some great clips tonight. I did share a link into the chat to the full film understory, which folks should definitely take a look at when you have an opportunity, and we'll follow up with some of those resources in an email after this. And as people are kind of still chiming into the chat, I did want to ask one question that I had the pleasure of actually being part of the kind of the selection committee that helped award Elsa and have been interested in this story for sure. And I was curious. So Lonnie is the weaver and kind of approached you for this film, and she's working with 5 apprentices. I was curious, how did Lonnie select those folks? Did they approach her? Who are those apprentices, and how did they get involved in this?
That's a really interesting question, actually, because in Tlingit culture, it used to be a very specific process to be an apprentice, because weavers in the Tlingit culture are very like powerful people. It's a really high status position, and this, like, clearly times are changing, and I think that it's really important for Lonnie just to be able to pass this knowledge on. But I will say she really wanted to find people to be part of this who would have the persistence to complete a robe, because these robes will literally, I think we're in the second year now of weaving, and there's another year ahead. Like, it is an incredibly challenging art form to learn. And one of the clips that I didn't share that I maybe should have is Lonnie talking about how important it is to weave with the right like frame of mind as well, because the energy that the weavers put into the robe will stay there with the robe forever. So they're really important objects, and I think that's what Lonnie was looking for, was like people who would have the persistence to finish the project. And a lot of these women have done smaller weavings before, so projects that would maybe take them like a few months to a year to complete. And for all of them, though, this is their first full robe. So it's quite the honor, and it's quite the investment of time. And I think that's another part of it that's really interesting is, you know, with the urgency that we're facing right now, and for these women with the urgency of the threat of a mine going in and threatening the fish that they depend on. It's a very interesting form of advocacy to sit down and weave a robe for many years. But I think a lot of what they're doing is just reflecting as they weave and thinking about how to be leaders in their community, and really just putting the love for their place into these robes.
Great. I had one other question in my notes, and folks, again, if you have questions, please jump in. The image that you shared of amidst your ground truthing project, and you had that stark image of in the midst of the clear cuts, you know, the kind of the decimation, and we saw you walking through there, and then later on you're talking about the influx of the candlefish, I think it was the name of them, and how that brings speed, and the immense amount of wildlife that is supported through these ecosystems. Did you notice, I mean, obviously there was a sense of destruction, right, in the clear cuts, but was there a sense of, you know, was there any wildlife to speak of as you were going through these landscapes?
Yeah, I actually, that was one of the fascinating things about the ground truthing work that I did is Prince of Wales is a fairly fragmented place, which is why it's really important to protect, because what's left is really holding on to the ecological resiliency of the place. But what I found in the places that were still wild is it felt like all of the creatures and like all of the aliveness from this huge place, it's sort of like concentrated into these smaller areas. And so that's really why it's important to protect these roadless forests, because these are places where animals can still be animals. You know, wolves can have their dens, and there's still sandhill cranes on the beach, and deer, and just black bears, and so much life. And that was actually really exciting for me, as I felt like that was some of the most like concentrated alive energy I've ever experienced. And I do think it was because the landscape is kind of like fragmented and has pushed those creatures to these places.
Wow, that's scary but interesting. I think unless anyone else wants to chime in, I think I had one other question, which would be, you know, you spoke about two specific film projects, right? But I also know that you and Colin have produced more out there through Confluence Media, and I think in particular you had a Bristol Bay project that was getting some legs. I was excited to see an ad for it in an Orvis catalog at some point. Would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the other projects that you all have launched?
Absolutely. And sorry, I got kind of flustered there at the beginning with my tech issues, but Colin Arisman, my husband, is an incredibly talented filmmaker, and he has been making films now for over a decade. And he's really kind of honed in on these conservation stories. And he's especially good at kind of going to remote places and just spending time with people and really building trust and taking the time to tell their story in a way that, feels good to them. And so he did just release a film, I believe it came out 2 years ago, called School of Fish, which is about Pebble Mine and a family there that's doing a lot of work to push back against that mine. And they're also just kind of involved with salmon in every way possible. So that's a great film, and that came out a couple years ago. And if you go to wildconfluencemedia.com, there's a lot of these films are just available to watch for free. And yeah, that is kind of a goal with our films. Like, we want to tell important stories, and then we want these stories to be available for people to watch and engage with. And it really does sort of, for the folks who have their stories told, it gives them a pretty incredible platform to continue to do their work. So for instance, like, folks will have opportunities to travel to film festivals. I'm really excited for these weavers to get to go to some film fests. But it's just a pretty powerful tool for being able to show where somebody's from, and for those people to be able to enter a room and feel like they are understood and seen. And that's part of our work as storytellers too. I feel like, especially in Alaska, where people are living these lives that are pretty far out when you compare them to what like the lives that a lot of people are used to in the lower 48. It's really helpful to have these films as a way to introduce themselves to the world. And I think that being able to have these films also lets them speak with more power and more strength and compassion, and to speak from the right place, because they don't have to spend all the time like trying to introduce, like, I live on the edge of a river, like all 5 species of salmon spawn there. Like, this is, I've been there since time immemorial. Like, that's explained, and they can just present what it is they're thinking about and trying to advocate for in the moment. So we really do try to make our films somewhat timeless as well, so they can be something that folks can use to organize and make positive change for many years.
Well, Elsa, thank you for sharing your story and these stories with us tonight. I think I want to just give a quick shout out to Daniel, Deb, and Marjorie for your support during this event. I saw that all of you have donated to the Memorial Fund, which helps support the storytelling grant, which Elsa received, which we're going to be continuing this year and for many, many years to come. And I encourage folks to continue to take action and check out all that Elsa and Colin have made possible in the world by checking out some of the links in the chat, which will come through in an email tomorrow. And again, happy Earth Day, and thank you for being a part of this, everyone.